Before we begin, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss stories that go deeper than headlines and closer to the human truth. Some moments in Hollywood are loud, full of flashing cameras and applause. Others are so quiet they stop time. This story belongs to the second kind. It begins with a voice the world trusts instinctively, a voice that has narrated justice, wisdom, and fate itself. When Morgan Freeman finally spoke about Gene Hackman, it wasn't a performance, and it wasn't a publicity moment. It was a release. For years, Freeman carried a private grief, shaped by loyalty, shared history, and a bond formed long before fame entered either man's life. When he finally broke his silence, it didn't feel like a tribute meant to comfort the audience. It felt like truth surfacing after years underwater. His words reopened questions people thought were settled, not just about Gene Hackman's death, but about who he truly was behind the roles that defined American cinema. What Freeman revealed wasn't polished or sentimental. It was raw, restrained, and deeply human, the kind of honesty that lingers long after the sound fades. To understand why Morgan Freeman's words carried such weight, you have to rewind to a version of Gene Hackman most people never imagine. Long before awards, before iconic performances, before his face became synonymous with intensity and authority, Hackman was an outsider knocking on locked doors. Early Hollywood did not welcome him. Casting agents criticized his looks, his age, even his energy, labeling him difficult before he had a chance to prove himself. Acting instructors openly doubted his future, once ranking him among the least likely students to succeed. These rejections weren't brief setbacks. They were years of being dismissed, overlooked, and quietly humiliated. Yet Hackman didn't chase approval. He chased truth. He refined his craft in small theaters, absorbed rejection without softening his edge, and developed a realism that would later unsettle entire film sets. When opportunity finally arrived in 1967 with Bonnie and Clyde, it wasn't luck finally smiling. It was persistence colliding with readiness. His portrayal of Buck Barrow earned an Academy Award nomination and instantly rewrote his place in Hollywood. But beneath the sudden attention was a man who never forgot how easily the industry had tried to erase him. After Bonnie and Clyde, Gene Hackman didn't simply rise. He stormed forward with a presence that felt unavoidable. Directors quickly learned that Hackman didn't perform characters, he inhabited them. His commitment to realism made people uncomfortable because it removed the safety net of acting. There were no vanity gestures, no charm designed to soften rough edges. He played brutal detectives, broken loners, and morally conflicted men with a depth that felt almost invasive. Audiences were mesmerized, but co-stars were often intimidated. Hackman demanded truth from every scene and everyone in it. That intensity earned him admiration and fear in equal measure. Morgan Freeman later explained that Hackman's power didn't come from confidence alone, but from an almost ferocious refusal to lie on screen. He didn't care if a character was likable. He cared if it was honest. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Hackman became one of the most versatile actors of his generation, seamlessly shifting between genres without losing authenticity. Yet even as his fame grew, the industry embraced his talent more than the man himself, a separation Hackman felt deeply and never fully accepted. Hollywood applauded Gene Hackman, but it never truly felt like home to him. Behind the awards and acclaim lived a man who felt misaligned with an industry built on compromise, image, and constant performance beyond the camera. Morgan Freeman understood that feeling immediately. The two met in their early theater years, long before fame reshaped their lives. Back then, they weren't legends. They were working actors navigating rejection, doubt, and financial uncertainty. What bonded them wasn't ambition, but recognition. They saw in each other the same quiet defiance, the same resistance to pretending for acceptance. Their friendship wasn't loud or performative. It was grounded in shared struggle and mutual respect. When they reunited decades later on Unforgiven, the connection felt unchanged, as if time had simply folded in on itself. Their scenes carried a gravity that came from lived experience, not scripted emotion. Freeman later admitted that working with Hackman felt different because Hackman didn't act for approval. He acted because he couldn't do otherwise. That bond, forged before fame, made Hackman's eventual withdrawal from Hollywood feel personal, not just professional, to those who truly knew him. As the years passed, success never softened Gene Hackman. If anything, it amplified the pressures he had spent a lifetime resisting. Fame brought attention, obligations, and scrutiny that weighed heavily on someone who valued privacy and control. Beneath the surface, a more serious threat was growing. Hackman rarely spoke publicly about his health, but those close to him knew he had been battling heart issues for years. In 1990, while vacationing in Oregon, severe chest pains sent him to the hospital. Doctors warned him he was dangerously close to a heart attack. An angioplasty saved his life, physically at least, but the emotional impact lingered. At just 60 years old, Hackman became acutely aware of his own mortality. Time no longer felt abstract. Every role, every stressful production, every demand from the industry felt heavier. He continued working, delivering powerful performances well into the next decade, but the cost was becoming harder to justify. The work he loved was inseparable from an environment that drained him, and his body was no longer willing to absorb the punishment. By the early 2000s, the machinery of Hollywood had changed, and Hackman felt increasingly out of place within it. Films required more press, more travel, more exposure. Interviews felt intrusive. Publicity tour felt exhausting. Hackman wasn't built for constant visibility or artificial charm. The stress compounded with age and lingering health concerns, creating a quiet exhaustion that no award could offset. While audiences still saw strength and authority on screen, off-camera Hackman felt depleted. The joy that once fueled his performances was tangled in obligation. In 2004, without fanfare or announcement, he stepped away. No farewell tour, no dramatic goodbye, just a simple statement. He missed acting, but the business had become too stressful. To fans, the decision felt sudden. To those who knew him, it felt inevitable. Morgan Freeman later admitted he sensed Hackman was tired, but didn't realize how final the decision truly was. When Hackman later revealed that stress tests showed his heart could no longer handle the demands of acting, it became clear this wasn't retirement. It was survival. After leaving Hollywood, Gene Hackman disappeared into a quieter life far removed from premieres and applause. He and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, settled in Santa Fe, New Mexico, a place where anonymity was possible and expectations were minimal. There, Hackman embraced simplicity. He painted, fished, wrote fiction, and collaborated on historical novels. He watched small films, enjoyed routines, and found comfort in being unknown. For the first time in decades, he wasn't required to perform for anyone. Friends noticed a gentler rhythm to his days, but also a growing isolation. Over time, the couple became increasingly private. Hackman stopped biking through the neighborhood, something he once loved. He relied more on Betsy to maintain structure and routine. She encouraged activities to keep his mind engaged, from puzzles to guided yoga sessions. To outsiders, it looked peaceful. To those paying closer attention, it felt like a gradual retreat from the world, not out of bitterness, but exhaustion. Isolation has a way of magnifying whatever a person carries inside. As the years passed, Hackman's health declined subtly but steadily. Neighbors of decades noted fewer sightings, fewer conversations. The couple declined visits and maintained distance, not from coldness, but from a desire to protect their fragile balance. Yet there were contradictions. Betsy still spoke of future plans, upcoming events, small things that suggested normalcy. Nothing outwardly signaled tragedy. That's what made what followed so haunting. In February 2025, a routine maintenance visit turned into a discovery no one was prepared for. The front door slightly ajar. No response to knocking. Authorities were called. Inside, they found Gene Hackman, Betsy Arakawa, and one of their dogs deceased. 2 other dogs wandered the property, confused and alone. Hackman was found near his cane. Betsy lay in the bathroom beside a space heater, with prescription pills scattered nearby. The scene was quiet, undisturbed, and deeply unsettling. Even more disturbing were signs suggesting they had been gone far longer than anyone realized. Investigators quickly realized this was not a straightforward case. Early signs of mummification indicated the bodies had been undiscovered for days, possibly weeks. Hackman's pacemaker data showed his heart activity stopped on February 17th, 9 days before discovery. Authorities examined every detail. phones, planners, medication bottles, even household trash. Carbon monoxide poisoning was considered, but tests revealed no gas leaks or system failures. There was no forced entry, no sign of struggle, no evidence of intrusion. Whatever happened, happened quietly and privately. The death of one dog, found caged near Betsy, added another layer of confusion. Friends and neighbors struggled to reconcile the scene with the people they knew. A couple growing more reclusive, yet still functioning. A home untouched by violence, yet filled with unanswered questions. The lack of clear explanation left a silence heavier than any conclusion. And in that silence, the world turned to those who knew Gene Hackman best, hoping for understanding. As grief and speculation spread, Morgan Freeman stepped forward, not as a commentator, but as a witness. At the 97th Academy Awards in March 2025, the room fell into an almost reverent silence as Freeman approached the stage. He hadn't spoken publicly since the news broke. This wasn't just a colleague he was honoring. It was a friend from the earliest days of struggle. Freeman spoke without theatrics. He spoke as someone carrying decades of shared history. He reminded the audience that Hackman never acted in the traditional sense. He lived his characters. Every glance, every pause, every line came from truth. Freeman's voice wavered slightly, revealing a depth of loss rarely seen from him. He thanked Hackman for setting a standard that couldn't be faked, for shaping generations of actors, for being a friend who never needed applause. When he said, "Rest in peace, my friend," the silence that followed felt heavier than any standing ovation. Freeman later reflected on their time filming Unforgiven, a project that reunited them after decades apart. The chemistry was immediate, but so was Hackman's intensity. In one scene involving a whipping, Hackman leaned in and whispered words so convincingly cruel that Freeman felt a genuine chill. For a moment, the line between acting and reality blurred. Yet Freeman never doubted Hackman's integrity. That intensity was never cruelty for its own sake. It was commitment. Hackman demanded authenticity even when it made people uncomfortable. That was his gift and his burden. It made him extraordinary and, at times, difficult. Freeman understood that balance better than most. He knew that behind the intimidating presence was a man who simply refused to lie, on screen or in life. Gene Hackman's uncompromising nature earned him a reputation. His temper was legendary, his clashes with directors well documented. On the Royal Tenenbaums, tension between Hackman and director Wes Anderson became industry folklore. Hackman openly challenged Anderson's quiet style, sometimes erupting in frustration. Bill Murray even intervened to protect the young director. Ironically, the resulting performance became one of Hackman's most celebrated late-career roles. There were other conflicts, financial struggles, and public incidents that reinforced his image as difficult. Yet these weren't the actions of a careless man. They were the consequences of someone who refused to bend easily. Hackman didn't play Hollywood's political games. He avoided red carpets, disliked interviews, and rejected artificial glamour. Morgan Freeman saw through the reputation and recognized something rarer: honesty. Despite his success, Hackman faced financial instability during parts of his career. Poor investments and tax issues left him scrambling at times, even borrowing his daughter's car for meetings. These struggles humanized him in ways the public rarely saw. Fame arrived faster than stability, and Hackman never fully adjusted to the machinery surrounding it. Yet he kept working, kept refining his craft, driven by pride and responsibility rather than comfort. Freeman admired that resilience. He understood that Hackman's flaws were inseparable from his strengths. The same fire that made him uncompromising also made him unforgettable. In the end, Gene Hackman lived as he worked, on his own terms. He resisted Hollywood's noise and ultimately faded into silence, leaving behind a legacy defined by brilliance, conflict, and truth. His final years, marked by retreat and mystery, feel haunting precisely because they contrast so sharply with the power he once commanded on screen. Morgan Freeman's words didn't resolve that mystery. They didn't try to. Instead, they honored the complexity of a man who refused to simplify himself for comfort. Hackman was not just a legend. He was human, shaped by struggle, pride, and an unyielding demand for authenticity. Gene Hackman's story reminds us that even legends carry burdens no one applauds. Behind every iconic performance is a private life shaped by pressure, doubt, and difficult choices. Morgan Freeman's quiet tribute didn't just mourn a friend. It reminded the world that greatness often comes at a cost we never see. Now that you've heard the deeper truth behind their friendship and the mysteries surrounding Hackman's final years, what will you remember most about him? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story that goes beyond fame and into the human heart.